And let's talk about SmackDown on Friday. Now, I thought the most interesting thing about SmackDown was that I chose to watch the Met game instead. Did you watch SmackDown?
Well, yes, I did. And that's why it fooled me there, because when you said the most interesting thing about SmackDown, I was trying to think back and think of an interesting thing on SmackDown. I will run through a few things briefly, so we don't leave anybody hanging. But SmackDown's 2 hours, you know. The opening segment was a contract signing, because those always go so well. With Adam Pearce, who, bless him, he keeps a straight face, and he's well-spoken and has a grown-up adult male voice and looks good wearing a suit. And he somehow, he doesn't really get any on him in all of this. He manages to stay, he's being serious about it. He's doing what he's supposed to do, but you can tell he's just like, what the fuck? Anyway, so he's in the ring with the table and the chairs. He introduces Charlotte, who, again, I don't know what it was with this weekend, but even Charlotte, who always comes out looking like Diana Ross, maybe Elton John. She came out wearing a designer hefty bag. I don't know what this suit was. And they recapped the previous week when she put the figure 8 on the new announcer, Gulag Archipelago. And then Pearce introduces Rhonda, and out she comes. She's happy. She is happy as a clam. She is smiling from ear to ear. And they're going to sign the contract, but Adam Pearce notices on the table there is no contract. And he kind of like, well, I see we have no contract. He's looking around, did that very well. Guess who came out with the contract? His new intern, Gulag Archipelago.
Oh, come on.
He's Adam Pearce's new intern now. So they didn't even bother to explain it. I didn't hear it, by saying that as a result of him threatening legal action for being assaulted by one of our athletes, we're giving him an office job. He's the intern. So I swear to God, this is happening.
No, I understand this is how Lou Thesz got to the top. He started as a wrestler, then he became an interviewer, and then he became an intern.
Well, and also, Gulag has prepared a PowerPoint presentation on the rules of an I Quit match that he will show on the screen, but Charlotte shuts him up. Thankfully, we didn't see that. And Charlotte does a pretty decent promo about the I Quit rules and how she's going to beat her and blah, 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 and she signs the contract. And then Rhonda mumbles a few words, and basically her point is no referee's going to save you. And she had about as much enthusiasm for that as she's had, or lack thereof, for most everything else. And then suddenly, Charlotte turns over the desk. You've never seen that before. And she's supposed to have allegedly planted a kendo stick under the desk, right? But when she turns the desk over, the desk lands on the kendo stick. So she's got to fucking get down there for a second, and she comes out with a kendo stick. And she swings at Rhonda, and Rhonda gets it and wears Charlotte out. And old Gulag comes up and stops Rhonda from assaulting Charlotte, and she grabs him and Piper's pits him. Piper pits him, or Piper's pit? She gave him the Piper's pit move. So many P's here. You know, the P6 principle. Poor pre-planning leads to piss-poor performance. But anyway, then after she gives him the Piper's pit move, she puts him, you know, the old Inoki arm breaker, right?
Of course.
Okay, she puts him in the arm, it's a judo hold. So she puts him in the arm breaker, and while he's selling the arm breaker, she's still got the contract and the pin in her hand and his arm wrapped up in her crotch, and so she signs the contract while putting the arm breaker on him. So they made this funny. So now their two biggest female stars are going to have an I Quit match on the next pay-per-view, and they're doing funny, silly, fake business with a fucking announcer we've never even seen before. So
for that match, does it have to be one of them that quits? Can we quit?
I already have. I can't believe in 2 months I'm done with Ronda Rousey. What the fuck? It's like
She's boring now.
she's bored because she don't want to be there. You can tell something's going on.
Got to turn her.
Either that or they have critiqued her into completely not knowing or giving a fuck what she's doing. I don't know. So continuing with SmackDown, Xavier with Kofi wrestled Sheamus with Ridge and Butch. And then, actually, guess what the best pro wrestling match was of not only Friday SmackDown and Friday Rampage, but last night's Raw?
Oh, I have no idea if it was on SmackDown. Based on where you are in the show, it'd probably be, was it Nakamura?
No.
Okay, I don't know.
The best pro wrestling match on all three of those shows, because it was the only match that looked like a pro wrestling match featuring a pro wrestler with no stupid, silly gaga, was Walter versus Teddy Goods.
I don't know who Teddy Goods is.
Exactly. And it's so sad that Walter is like a space alien. He has landed here on this planet, a fully formed, talented main event professional wrestler that could have worked in any territory in the business over any age or period in it. And he's all alone. And he ain't got the fucking plutonium nitrate to power his ship to get back home. So he's stuck here. But if you want to watch a pro wrestler, watch Walter. Of course, they're calling him Gunther. But Teddy Goods is some fat fucking pasty-faced guy whose job was get his ass kicked because they're trying to get Walter over. And from the time the bell rang and at the lockup, it was immediately obvious that Walter was the only pro wrestler that I'd seen exhibiting pro wrestling skills. Maybe some sports entertainers, but he would have been a massive star in any era. Bigger star than he is today because he's a wrestler and there aren't any anymore. But he kicked the shit out of this guy and beat him with a power bomb. And he manhandled him and his shit looked good and he looks mean and he looks serious. And it made sense. And this was the only real incidence of a pro wrestling match or somebody actually being better off image-wise, getting over, as they say, at the end of it than they were at the beginning.
They don't give a lot of guys wins over job guys. I hate to use that term, but that's what it is. And they've been doing it now with Gunther or Walter for the last few weeks. What does that tell you about how they see him and how they may intend to use him? And when you look at this roster here, you know, Roman Reigns is the top guy. Roman Reigns is a heel. Gunther has to be a heel. What do you think they're going to do with him?
I hope continuing this, because it's refreshing. Vince used to take 6 months to get a fucking guy over. Just put him on TV or the syndicated TV every 2 or 3 weeks, Raw for a match every other week and a promo every other week or some bit of taped business, and just get guys over. And that's what they should do with Walter. And apparently that's what they're going to do. And maybe, because Vince every once in a while, the writers pitch shit that they think he'll like. But every once in a while, if he really likes somebody, he will say, let's cut to shit and just get him over and just give him wins and just let him beat people up. And this is the kind of guy that gets over in that fashion. So it's a good sign. I would think it would be Vince over, because remember what they were doing with him, the creative team on NXT. And then when he first got the main roster, he's in a 6-man tag and blah, blah, blah. I would like to think that Vince somewhere, there's still Vince McMahon somewhere in the brain fog of his current age. And he said, no, we're going to make this fucking guy a star and we're going to do it the old fashioned way that still works, especially because we ain't doing it anymore. That's what I'd like to think. But we'll see what happens. Maybe the writers will get sick of it in 2 or 3 weeks and have him wearing a goddamn ruby slippers and clicking his heels to go back to Austria. And you also missed Jey Uso versus Riddle, Brian. That's terrible. Because actually, I did too. After you put over RK Bros tag team match last week, I thought, well, I'll watch, because I thought it was going to be a tag match coming up. I'll watch Riddle and Orton, right? And it turned out to be Riddle against Jey Uso. And I said, And also it lasted forever, and Riddle still annoys me. So he won. He converted a splash off the top rope into a small package. Have you ever seen that before?
A splash off the top rope to a downed opponent?
Yes.
Into a small I'm not sure.
Because if Riddle's down, Uso comes off the top, Riddle lifts his knees, Uso lands on the knees and rolls right over into a small package. It didn't look real, but it was nifty. But that wouldn't happen that way if you actually were trying to do any of those things, but it looked nifty. I know you'll be just mortified you missed this. Sasha and Naomi did a promo in the ring and were interrupted by Natalya and Shayna. So that's just terrible you missed that. And then, guess what else you missed? Mosh Pit Jones versus Los Lotharios #1. And I will have you know that Happy Corbin beat up Mosh Pit and stole the Andre the Giant Battle Royal trophy. Just carried it right off with him. Let's see. Roman Reigns was in his locker room with the Wise Man and the Usos, and he's not happy about Uso losing. And then Heyman comes and says, well, you have a guest, a visitor. Sami Zayn wants to see you. And honestly, this was worth watching for 2 minutes. It's not going to mean anything in the booking or the wrestling story, and nobody's going to care, but Sami Zayn is a great little suck-up toady, and he was well-spoken and got this whole sales pitch out about, he's stooging Drew McIntyre and RK Bro for talking behind Roman Reigns' back, and he's sucking up to Roman for help in beating Drew, and he'll in turn be a help to Roman somehow in return. Sami Zayn, again, good suck-up toady, but there you go. You also missed Lacey Evans again. This has been like 4 weeks in a row. How much tragedy and heartache and mistreatment. I know it's all true, and that's what the problem is. This is cringy telethon fundraising clip sad stuff. It's so fucking sad I want to quit watching the program. Because it's awkward and it makes you uncomfortable, as we've mentioned this. It's not, they are doing a biographical piece with comments from her and comments from other people and pictures and flown in as B-roll and a narrator telling some of the hard parts of the story so that then you can get a comment from her on it. And it's not like she's just standing out there being stood up against a wall. She even starts it with, okay, here we go again. Okay, you want some more? Like they've just stood this poor girl up against a wall and said, tell us in your own words, every horrible thing that's ever happened to you in your life, and we're not going to edit it, and we're not going to fucking give you any assistance whatsoever. We're going to B-roll a couple of family pictures and otherwise just leave you twisting in the wind out there. 1 week would have been okay. 2 weeks maybe. Now people have got to be going, what the fuck, seriously? If this was such a sad story, why didn't they tell it before when she was out here with a fucking parasol wearing fucking Vivian Lee's hand downs from Gone with the Wind? She's talking about living in trailers with holes and houses with mold. And again, her abusive father and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying don't tell the story. I'm saying don't make this poor girl go out there and just tell it all herself so awkwardly. And it just doesn't come off. Brian, help me. How can I possibly verbally convey the discomfort of this whole thing that you feel for this girl, have not for the experiences she went through, but having to fucking do these promos.
I wasn't a fan of when Paul Heyman had Tammy sit down for that whole episode and spill her guts.
No, that was taking advantage of her back before she deserved to be taken advantage of, quite honestly.
And with this, it's part of her real life story, but at a certain point, she's over as a babyface just based off this now. I mean, how much more of this is there to go? I mean,
but I can't
imagine there'll be a third week, right?
Good Lord, one would hope not. What has this woman done in a previous life? Kicked an old gypsy? But I guess the thing I'm saying is, while even knowing that the story is true, although many people, it's on wrestling, may not even believe that. But it just seems so, what's the word I'm searching for? They're commercializing this. They are, instead of doing a feel-good piece on how this woman has overcome these things, they're standing her out there like a fucking police lineup and making her say it to commercialize it to, it's for crass purposes. It's being done on, the way you feel about it is they're saying these things and doing this on purpose to jerk with my emotions instead of letting that naturally happen by doing a nice video package on it. And that's why I don't like it. Oh, boy. And then he's a lumberjack, oh, baby. A lumberjack match between Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn. Guess what the finish of the lumberjack match was, Brian?
Count out?
No, actually not. But that was actually a trick question because there was no finish, but the way the match ended was Sami Zayn ran out of the building. I mean, Sammy's fine, Drew's fine. I've never seen such fake-looking lumberjack fights on the floor. Probably none of these guys have ever been in a real lumberjack match. If they have, it's been a WWE lumberjack match where it's probably turned out the same thing. They're supposed to just get into a big fight at the end, and it's all looks fake. But it was horrible. A lot of guys weren't even trying like they don't think they're on television or in front of thousands of people. And when all the lumberjacks got in a fight, Sammy just hopped the rail and ran up into the bleachers. And he's about halfway up in the building, and Adam Pearce comes out and says, okay, well, you've done that. He's going to let him get away with it. I didn't hear a bell. There was no definitive finish. Pearce just comes out and says, well, next week, it'll be a cage match. You won't be able to do that then? So they just accepted that Sami Zayn, if you get halfway up in the bleachers in a lumberjack match, you're allowed to escape unharmed. And then to give them some kind of something, Jinder Mahal and Spanky jump in the ring and beat up Drew McIntyre, but Drew comes back and gives Mahal the kick and makes mean faces at Sami Zayn, and they're off the air. That was the main event. WWE, you're not going to see amateurish work in the ring. You're not going to see stupid, brainless, idiotic physical risks with the, well, you will, but not as egregiously as you do in AEW with furniture and just shit for no reason and the hardcore, goofy, garbage deathmatch shit. But they have also, on the flip side, the WWE made their matches completely meaningless. And their finishes matter not. And the matches are a break in between the interminable entrances and the equally interminable dramatic monologues that are presented. So over in AEW, you're going to have, in some cases, really amateurish work and just stupid decision-making from goofs that have come out of the indies that don't know how to take care of their bodies and they have nobody in charge. And in the WWE, you're going to see quality professional work, but due to the creative and the way the whole thing is presented, it's boring because at least you're not watching somebody nearly kill themselves.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. The pride of the Fox Network, WWE Smackdown on Friday nights. Is that it? Is that all we have for reviews?
Well, there was Raw last night.
Oh boy.
It's always Raw on Mondays. That's because of all the use it gets on Sundays. But nevertheless, we've still got to talk about some things. And by the way, just since I know you're picky, if you hear some background noise, another gravel truck has just pulled up and is spewing gravel out of a chute on the back of it into the driveway area of this giant 17-car garage that my neighbor started last October and is still being constructified. So
I could hear it. Yeah.
Disregard the giant oncoming convoy of
Jesus Christ, now I can really hear it.
With gravel and now is driving through my fucking front wall. The hell? The whole house is shaking. This is a goddamn giant garage over here. I'll tell you that this guy's got built. But listen to this. It's coming one right after another. It looks like what was that? The
convoy.
The Die Hard movie where they were fucking stealing everything out of the Federal Reserve. It's just truck after truck.